Bronx actually does have a beach here. And so this is the work. And for me, when I was given the opportunity to do 2.0, it was really about trying to figure out how do we keep this momentum, how do we work effectively, but really making sure we have the heart of the matter in all of our sites. This is my site. And so when we talk about TIC, I thought it would be good as a team to kind of anchor ourselves a bit in the theory as well. There are 4 R's. The goal is really to realize trauma, recognize, respond, and resist re-traumatization. Sometimes even in the work that we do, I feel like being asked to do screeners and go to these transformation meetings, sometimes that feels traumatizing to me. As a provider, these emails sometimes feel overwhelming, and I think sometimes for our families, it can be really traumatizing the ways that we interact with them. And so when we think about TIC, I think about it a lot in the cultural competency literature. So in cultural competency, we say that you're never completely culturally competent. And I don't think we're ever completely trauma informed. It's really more of this process, this ongoing train ride of trying to get to this destination of what it means to be trauma informed. So it starts with this very first point, thank you, of what's wrong with you. So we talked a lot in the first wave of trauma informed care that we're not asking what's wrong with a patient. Why is this person, what's wrong with this patient sitting in front of me or at the front desk? And shifting that question to more trauma sensitivity, recognizing patients with a lens of empathy and not necessarily from a deficit. So we're aware that we're doing that. Then getting to that question of what happened. So we might start naturally with saying what's wrong, but we want to get to a point of what happened to this patient. After we're at that what happened point, it really starts to transition to that lovely point that Katie made about resiliency. So how do we use what happened to you to empower you and improve your life and the lives of those the lives of the people in your community and in your world? And so when I think about trauma-informed care, this is really where we're trying to go. And that's where the train is about. Now we're gonna always kind of circle back and have different points depending on where our system is, the strains of our system. I think this week with JCO, it was a lot of like, what's wrong? Why is this paper here? This shouldn't be this way. Like it was, somebody brought a legal pad that was like soaked in like some water from a back of a drawer 5 minutes before JCO came. And I was like, are we really, what is wrong with you? Why are you doing that? And so we definitely weren't at a trauma-informed train stop in our work. It was more in the trauma aware. And so the other piece, yes?
I think that speaks too to when we get stressed, it's a lot harder to be trauma informed.
Exactly, because it strains the system. And so thank you, Katie, part of the thing that I wanted us to point out is oftentimes in this trauma-informed work, sometimes we get, well, what about this? What about that? What about these areas? How come we're not doing policy work? How come it's not involving the community more? What about, I showed pictures of housing. What about all these different pieces? We showed how small our team is. Even at this table, we have a powerhouse of intellect, but we are still very small within MMG, smaller within the grand scheme of the Bronx in this state, in this country. I really think about, what can we do effectively? How do we do this work well while staying well? We can't tackle every single traumatizing point within the lives of our families and our patients and each other. What we developed, to be really clear so you know what we're doing, was a training and workforce development program with elements, that's why it's in light pink, of screening, assessment, and treatment services. That's what we do as BHIP, but we're not necessarily asking the larger group of MMG to do the treatment services. They're doing some screening and some assessment, but really it's about training our workforce to be able to do these other components. I thought it was important to point out these 10 domains, so when we have our expectations of what the trauma-informed team is going to be capable of doing, we are starting our train here. Eventually, I hope we can get all 10 stops on the train car, but the train is going across the entire country, and right now we are in the Bronx, okay? So Miguelina talked about all of the different things that we had done with the 1.0, but I wanted to just kind of put it in a really nice visual for you all. So our goal was really to change the attitudes and responses to trauma with 1,000 staff and 20+ practices for 300,000 patients with really 6 people as a core team doing it. right? And then we had our wonderful behavioral health. So what we did was first we started with leadership and creating buy-in. That's when you all went to those White Plain meetings and we presented like 4 times, some of you may remember. Then we had our behavioral health team do the trainings on site. That was wave 1. I'm going to talk a bit about half of your sites have not had TIC trainings yet. Then we do trauma treatment. That's all the TFCBT stuff that we've been doing here in our monthly trainings. Then we have the critical incident team, the SIMS team. Then we have our workforce. They're actually receiving the on-site training. These are the receivers, encouraged to pursue wellness. And then finally, our patient experience. That's in the gray because, again, it's sort of like the model that Kate drew earlier. All of these things support the patient experience. Okay, 6 minutes. So training and workforce development, leadership, Miguelina already went into this, presenting our preliminary data at executive meetings. We are still going through all of our TIC 1.0 data. We have the qualitative vignettes, if you remember the vignettes. We have the patient experience surveys. We have burnout, compassion, fatigue. So we're still deep in it. The other piece is we're presenting this at transformation meetings. That's the piece that Miguelina was talking about. If your site really needs this data, we can present that at those meetings. But again, we're a small team. We're trying to tackle it and distribute our information. Patient experience stuff, all of our measures in that area have been obtained. Of course, ACEs is ongoing, but that's obtained and we're in the process of analyzing that. We also have developed our posters. So this is a poster that will now be, and it's in English and Spanish, that will be distributed in the pediatric practice. Isn't it great? Isn't that really pretty? Some of them big, some of them small. We're doing a PDSA right now of scanning it in black and white. Well, we haven't started this as of yesterday, hot off the press, of stapling it to the ACEs questionnaire, so it's more accessible reading than just the letter. So we'll have the letter and the poster. People can kind of engage it in whichever they're reading or their mood or what have you. I think this would be really cool to do on top of what we're already doing. This will be the adult one. So the adult patients will have this same approach, and if we can find a site that's really geared up, we'll PDSA that in the adult side. BHIP and workforce. What are we doing with our team and the workforce? And that's kind of a relationship that goes back and forth because we're training the workforce. They're coming to our office, asking us questions. Anjali, why can't we lower it? All of this stuff is part of that workforce piece. Talent management, you all initially received emails saying to do the trauma-informed care training, and then you didn't get them anymore because you weren't supposed to really get them and it wasn't supposed to, that whole issue. We fixed it. But it's still open for the larger staff. Our TIMS committee, this is a team of multi-discipline experts that inform the work that we're doing. And so right now, we have quite a few members that are staying on. Most of the members are staying on for 2.2 or 2.0, but we still have some members that need to be added. Patient collaborations, we have a patient committee, and so our goal is to figure out how to use that team, patients more. And so there is some research to talk about more innovative ways to connect with patients in trauma-informed care and just using patients to inform services in general. Then we have our SIMS team. How many of us are members of SIM? Right, it's pretty small. So we need to recruit new members. And Paul, we need to recruit new members. We need some additional trainings, and there's some talk about a collaboration with CHAM and doing some trainings with them together. So you may be getting an invitation to be part of the SIMS committee. This is a team that deploys when there's a critical incident at a site, and it provides peer support. Then we're gonna do train the trainer. So everyone who was at a wave 1 site went to a full, well, I guess was it a full day? I can't remember. Was it like 6 hours or 4 hour? It was a 4-hour training, half a day training, where you learned everything trauma-informed care and prepared to do the on-site trainings. That hasn't happened for quite a few sites. And so we're gonna do that piece, and then we're gonna start the wave 2 trainings for the specific sites. These are the sites that still need, and some of your names are next to them. You will be paired with a social worker, and you will be doing on-site trainings specific to TIC, just like wave 1 already did. The cool piece is you won't have to do 6 of those presentations. It'll be a lot less because some of the sites are smaller and we've consolidated the training. Look out for my email for that. So screening, assessment, again, pink, it's a little bit light. Miguelina went into some of the PDSAs. I'm not going to go into that for the sake of time. Our goal is really to start spreading TIC to larger parts of our system. So school health is very interested, CHAM is very interested, and one piece, because we've received so much interest from other sites and other organizations, we're doing a full day training institute. One of the things in the 2.0 that I'm really aiming to do is integrate culture-based countertransference with TIC, talking more about the role of culture and trauma and how those two are so interconnected. Outside of MMG, these are just some of the trainings that we've done in the last 6 months, not even the last year. These were just ones that came off the top of my head. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there so you know when you see in all of those weekly reports, we're spreading this information. So the 2.0 team, this is our core team, and so Miguelina was the program director for 1.0. She's still part of the content expert committee, or still a content expert. Katie, huge member, Alyssa Mallow, and then we have our projects managers. I put both of them because we're still figuring out the RA stuff. Questions in 4 to 10 seconds. Any questions about that? Anything not clear?